Hello, everyone, and welcome again to a new season of the New Earth podcast. This third season is going to deal with healing the world. We have spent the past decades working on ourselves, healing our trauma, reaching the ego death. And most of us are still in the process of doing that. But as we're seeing, there is no way of healing ourselves other than by also shining our light of healing outside of us so that our entire surroundings get healed and we are allowed to truly heal our trauma and to truly become our highest self. This new season is going to focus both on holistic ways of healing ourselves, but also on the things we must change altogether as a collective in our society. And I'm going to give, together with other guests, specific advice on how to do it through daily gestures so that we can finally raise the consciousness of humanity to a next level and that peace can be established in the world. Let's start. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to a new episode of the New Earth podcast. Today, we're going to be interviewing Sarah Thorman. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, Nancy. Thank you for having me here.
We're in her place today, and this is her beautiful couch. You may see her cats going around. They're beautiful as well and very, very nice and cute. So Sarah is a very, very interesting life story that has to do with a lot of things that have to do with women health, but also our healthcare, and at the same time revolutionary practices in the industries like her industry, which is Hollywood, the movies and entertainment. And she really brought a lot of innovation in her field by following her intuition, and I think we all should do the same. And especially in this new season of Heal the World, we really want to hear the cat. That's what I said. It's going to be a fun episode for the cats also. So what she has done also, I love what she's done in her industry, because by following her intuition, she has really revolutionized the ways in which the production was doing work by including holistic practices. What she's done is incredible. So let's just not spoil anything for the audience, but tell me, what do you do today, especially what kind of job you're doing, who are you today, and then we're going to be talking about how you got here and what kind of problems you found along the way that we think should be changed, like how can we change the world based on the problems we faced, right? So tell me, what do you do today?
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. So I am the founder and CEO of Mindful Creatrix, and I am a mental wellness and efficiency consultant for the entertainment industry. And what that means is I work with women and women identifying and non-binary producers and creative leaders in the entertainment industry to improve their communication, their productivity, their creativity, and their efficiency, both for themselves as individuals and for their teams. And I also provide on-set services. And the whole point of the service that I'm providing is to help these leaders and producers really create innovative and inspiring content for audiences that deeply impacts them and shifts their consciousness in a positive way. And I believe by creating this shift in the entertainment industry, like really shifting the entire entertainment industry into this space of harmonious creative collaboration that I help them create and sustain. When we create this content for audiences, we're also shifting the consciousness of everybody who's watching and consuming this content into that space of harmonious creative collaboration.
I agree with you. I think it's incredible. Like, I think every one of us has different positions in society, but I feel like certain job roles and certain positions allow you to have a much bigger reach, especially in the entertainment industry. I feel like I'm a psychic and a medium, and when I watch a movie, I know what the actor is thinking. I know how the vibration of the room actually is. I know the behind the scene things when I watch movies. And I think we all do, in the sense that I am particularly sensitive to it. I've learned to recognize the flavor of the things that I'm perceiving, right? People just perceive that and they eat it and they swallow it and they channel it. They just don't know that they're doing that. And so it's like we all get fed with everything that is contained in a movie. It's not just about is the real personality of the actor, is in what mood he's actually in. I know whether they have issues with their wife at home that day, you know, like I know things like that by just looking in their eyes, you know. And so you can tell there's so much information that comes from a screen that most people are not aware of, but just they still perceive it, you know, like we still have access to all of these frequencies that come from the screen, but just most people take it in and they don't know that they've taken it in. And so and then we find ourselves under stress or anxious and we don't know where it comes from. Reality is that we're surrounded by so many things that we absorb and we don't realize. And so changing, shifting, going so deep, you know, increasing the level of consciousness, because it has everything has to do with consciousness, you know. I'm very, very selective of the kind of content that I watch, like, because there are certain movies that perpetuate ego and perpetuate lower vibrations and unconsciousness, and if I watch it, I synchronize in that vibration and I lower myself, you know, like my vibration gets lower as well. So now I only watch things that are either very authentic or that are higher in terms of consciousness or that help me in my journey in some way. So I only watch those things. And so imagine, you know, if you can actually, this has to do with directors who are very conscious and select actors who are very conscious and select people like you who are very conscious. And because of that, all together bring to light consciousness, and then on the screen what we receive is consciousness, you know. So this is incredible. What you're doing is huge. I think it should be scalable, like scaled, you know. It should become, you should definitely try to scale it and to make it become like a whole agency of people who go on different sets and help these kind of directors to really integrate all of these things. So tell me, how do you do that? Like, what is exactly that you do on set for them to, you know, improve their productivity and all these things, these beautiful things that you help them do?
Yeah, and thank you so much for that question. And I love that you brought this up about having an agency, because I recently had acquired a new business mentor who I'm really excited about. Her name's Catherine O'Leary, and she's very aligned and amazing. And one of the things that she talked to me about when we were building out kind of the structure of what I want this to look like moving forward, because I did have that realization of like, oh shoot, like if I want to make this huge change in the industry, like I need more of me. Like I can't be on every set. I can't be everywhere at once. And so she brought up this idea of a certification program, like taking producers and creative leaders through my certification program. And
are you doing that?
We just talked about it on Sunday, so it's very new.
You should definitely do that. This is incredible. I think you should definitely do that. This can really change, like it can really reach a lot. I'm actually proud and honored that I'm interviewing you right now, because I'm sure you're gonna have a boom afterwards. This is incredible. Yes,
thank you.
You should definitely pursue this.
I really am. I'm very excited about it, and I've already reached out to a couple people to do some market research and to really make sure it's very dialed in so it can be as efficient as possible. But yeah, I'm really excited about being able to certify people in what I do and being able to reach more stages and more sets. And really build this harmonious creative collaboration in a much faster way than I would if it was just me doing it.
Can you give us a little hint of what kind of activities it entails in terms of what you do on set? Like, is there anything, not specific, but like in general, is there anything you do that really makes a difference?
Yeah. So one thing that makes the most difference I've found from the sets that I've been on is taking time at the top of the day to take space with everybody, and that's the talent and the crew. And to all the producers out there who are like, we don't have time to do that, because that's the number one objection that I hear is like, we don't have time for that. We've got so much other stuff going on. I really want you to hear me when I say taking 5 minutes with everyone at the top of the day is going to save you 5 hours later on. Because when we take And I've done it in less than 5 minutes before. Like, you start you're in pre-production and the 80s, like, you'll have 15 minutes with everybody at the top of the day. And I'm like, ooh, how luxurious. Great. And then you get on set, everybody's running behind. They're like, oh, you actually have 4 minutes now. I'm like, great. That's all we need. Like, it's really very simple and doesn't take a lot of time. And so what I do is use my skills and even just calling it like a safety meeting for people who were maybe hesitant to participate. I've never had anybody hesitant to participate, to be honest. Everybody wants and needs this service. And so we just circle up, and you could do, like, sometimes I do one with talent, one with crew, or everybody all together. And I just really help everybody land into their bodies, find a space in their physical body that feels really good. And from that space, allow them to connect with that good or enjoyable feeling and set an intention for their day moving forward. And whether that's like, I want to feel calm and confident, or I want to feel present and connected, or I want to feel like I can move quickly without creating burnout for myself. Like, we do that in, ideally 15 minutes, but if I only have 4 or 5 minutes, that's great too. And the feedback I've gotten from people from just those 5 minutes is insane. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, like, I can't even believe how much better I feel right now and how much more prepared I feel for my day. And when we allow people to have that space and time and to train them every day, if I get to be on set every day, about how to connect to this like good, calm, positive feeling in their bodies, like, everybody is having such a better time, and that translates to better communication between all the departments. A lot less miscommunication about, like, somebody forgot to bring the certain light, or the costume department was supposed to do this, but they didn't talk to the lighting department about it, and now it's a whole drama. And it gets rid of all of that, just that 5 minutes at the top of the day. And I do provide other services depending on how long the day on set is. Like, I do also try to incorporate things like after lunch or in between makeup breaks. I do one-on-ones with the talent. The last set that I was on, we had someone who was an influencer there. So she was used to being in front of the camera, like in her home, but not necessarily in front of a camera and lights and everybody all around. And she had a huge meltdown just because of her anxiety, and, she was stumbling on her words, and she just was having a really hard time. And having me there on set, like, she literally ran off set. She was like, I can't do this. And so I followed her, and I spent probably like 15 or 20 minutes with her just doing the work that I do, centering and grounding and holding space. And within 20 minutes, she was completely fine and ready to go back on set. And she was there for 30 minutes. She nailed it, and we finished on time.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I think, I think it's incredible what you're doing, and definitely there's so many variables and things that can go wrong. And this is not just about the industry, like the Hollywood industry. Like, we're talking about everything. Like, every sector, every environment, every teamwork is ultimately like a warehouse in which everybody has to synchronize at the beginning of the day for them to carry. We're like waves and particles at the same time. We literally have to be on phase all together for us to harmonize and to integrate. I dance at a drum circle in the weekends, and there is a point where all drummers and the dancers and everybody is on the same flow, and you can tell it's a divine flow. You can tell that there is a huge difference when people actually synchronize in the same quantum field, in the same intention. We're all in the same present. We're all living in the same dimension, So when that happens, you can tell it's literally divine. You can feel it. It feeds you. It nurtures you. It's completely different than when everybody is thinking their own things and doing their own stuff and having their own fears. And instead, we're all at the same time in the same place, here and now, all together, right? So I feel like that's what you're doing. Like you're ultimately, like in a cell, there are factors that do different things, and there are also factors that do what you do, which is harmonizing and synchronizing everything and making sure that everything is on phase. And without those, it will be a mess. And it's just not about being a mess. It's because if you do something before something else happens, then everything goes wrong, and instead, if you just synchronize, everything will go completely different, so it's like your role is crucial, what you're saying is like that people save 5 hours. I think they save days.
Yeah.
They save millions of dollars, because if one day goes wrong, then people start getting frustrated about that specific scene they have to film. And then every time you get over it again, then everybody's like, oh my gosh, we can't do this scene. You know how many days you can go over with these things, and instead, like, you're just nailing it in one day. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I think you're doing a great job, and I'm really, really proud of what you're doing, and really excited for the changes you can bring to the industry, to an industry that really, as you're saying, affects us globally, because Hollywood is not just about the United States. The entire world watches movies forever. Once you make a movie and it becomes a cult, how many times does that movie get watched? How many times do that actor in that specific day and his mood affects everybody in the world? It's huge. So I'm really, really happy about what you're doing right now. But now let's get to how you got here. So how you got here because there are two parallel stories, guys, that are both very cool and very important to hear. One is the story of how she got to do her job and to do what she's doing, that she basically invented a new role in a sense. And the other one, and this is so important, to follow your intuition and to really motivate you guys to bring something novel to whatever field you're in, to just follow your intuition and do it. And I feel like this is also the theme of her story, to follow her own intuition, to follow her own feelings, because the other story has to do with her health and with her development as a woman as well. And so we're going to be talking about both, and they're kind of intertwined at the same time. So you start with the one that you prefer. So tell me how you got here.
So I, I grew up very emotionally detached and very afraid to show emotions, because I didn't want anybody to think that I was weak for crying, or, anger was really the only emotion that I felt comfortable sharing. And
which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
How crazy is that, right? That we feel more comfortable sometimes sharing negative emotions against, that go against others, instead of emotions that ultimately are make us weak. That's our survival instinct, right? From a survival standpoint, obviously, it's better to show anger so that you protect yourself and not to show weakness. Yeah. And that's how we function. Isn't that crazy though, in a society? That's how we all function.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Wow. Yeah, that really resonates too. Yeah. And, I was very much jaded and spiritual woo-woo stuff is bull. And I was like, this spiritual woo-woo stuff is bullshit. I don't believe in any of that. And then and I had done some theater stuff when I was a kid, but had been out of it for a really long time, and I was just kind of floating and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I got a job as a server at a restaurant, and there were a couple people there who were really into spiritual stuff, and they were like, hey, why don't you come to this channeling with me? And I had just moved back home to Kansas City from Chicago, and I didn't really have any friends, and I was like, okay, well, this is stupid, but I don't have any friends, so I'll go with you because I need to do something and make some friends. And she took me to this channeling, and it completely changed my life. I resonated so strongly with the energy that was in that space, and I felt something shift inside of my body that felt amazing, and I was
What kind of shift? Do you feel like you reactivated chakras or things like that?
Yeah, it was definitely like I felt an embodied connection to like my spiritual essence. It felt like all of the masking that I had done like really fell away, and I was like, oh, I feel like this power, this like internal energy that like
you found your true essence.
Yeah.
You found your true. This is a major step in spiritual awakenings, that you find your true essence. It's there. We have it all the time. When we're so all over the place all the time that we don't know who we are. And once you find it, it's that solid thing that you can, it's like your eternal being, right? It's like whatever happens around you, that thing, it's like solid. It's like a crystal solid thing that is your soul, that is inside of you, and you can feel, you like, right?
Yeah, it is like it's a very physical, visceral experience. Like it was for me at least, and so I was like, okay, yeah, let's check this out.
Wasn't that woo and bullshit?
And so I really decided that I wanted to explore. Like I've always loved like getting into the details of new things and exploring new things. So I was like, great, another area for me to explore. And I started learning about Reiki and tarot and channeling and all the spiritual things and crystals. And I started learning Reiki and about channeling, and I learned I was a really powerful channel actually, and that was really cool. And learned about crystals and reading tarot and all of the things, and like really stepping into my true essence in that space, I realized like everything just started to unfold naturally for me. Like I got fired from my job, and I was a baker at a bakery. I was wanting to kind of leave that job anyways. Actually, the day I went in to quit, I got fired.
Oh, how? Like why?
It's kind of a weird story, but the owner didn't really like how much other people liked me, and it was like a very small locally owned bakery, and so she made up a bunch of crazy reasons that like of events that hadn't really ever happened, and like I burned a bunch of product, and I was never like telling anybody what I was doing, and but I was like so detached from that anyways because I had wanted to quit. I was like, oh cool,
okay. Yeah, you've been redirected, but at the same time in so many different ways, because I feel like, you know what I find very interesting? The fact that you ultimately channeled yourself in the industry since the very beginning, because even bakers and waiters are jobs that are usually done by people who try to become famous as actors and, you know, in the industry. So even without knowing, you're already channeling yourself in the flow of the same field, because you were finding people from the same field trying to do the same things, even in fields that are actually completely unrelated but are often used as side jobs by the same people that you're now coaching and mentoring, you know, on the work. So I think it's very cool that I think from the beginning you were destined to do what you're doing today, and you've been channeled in so many ways, and including this is like, you know, like as a light worker, like what happened to you in the bakery, it's normal because light workers are generally persecuted, you know, like this is the norm, you know, like so when you get in a place and you shine too much, you're yourself and you shine, right? And so oftentimes, unfortunately, entrepreneurs are narcissistic instead, and so they're very dark personality types, very attached to money, and so when someone shines, they recognize, oh, this is the light worker, I don't want to have this person in here, right? And they push you out, but you've been redirected in time for you to not even care. So that was beautiful. I think, you know, like I love your flow, how you've been in the flow without even knowing. You're just like, okay, you know, like how beautiful is that? Yeah. And you harmonized. You see, like you're an harmonizer also for yourself, because you're always on time, doing things on time. I think surfing the wave in this way is like your personality trait in a sense that I don't think it's so common either. But anyways, let's get back to your story. So you learned Reiki. That's incredible.
Yeah. And Yeah, around the time I got fired from the bakery, I decided to take a little bit of time off to just like figure out what I wanted to do next. And in that time, my friend, who I'd actually been a server with, she is also in theater, and she was producing her own original work. And she knew that I had just been fired from my job, so she asked, like, hey, do you want to come stage manage this production? And I was like, I don't know what that means, but sure. Like, I had done theater camp as a kid, and I always really resonated with the theater kids, like in grade school and high school. And I was like, this will be fun. Like, let's do it. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And I was really good at it. Like, it was amazing. And so
So what do you have to do? What is a stage manager? Which is what you do today, by the way. Like, this is a role, a stage manager. So all the things we talked about before was exactly this role, basically. But like, you started by just randomly. But what does a stage manager do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So a stage manager basically manages every single aspect of a production. Like, they're in charge of, well, at least I was in the beginnings. A lot of people, if you're lucky, you get an assistant stage manager and a couple of PAs to help you. But in the beginning, I was doing everything myself because I was working on productions that had smaller budgets. And so I was doing everything from, we start in pre-production, like making the schedules, casting the show, doing location scouts for where we want to, what theater we want to be in, and then hiring the costume people and the lighting people and the sound people. And then once we get started in production, I'm in charge of running all the rehearsals, making sure everything stays on time and on budget, and really managing everybody in the production, managing the egos, managing the relationships between all the departments.
Managing the egos, guys. This is the best phrase I've ever seen. Like, in an industry like this, you have to manage the egos, because really, like, it's oftentimes what takes us around, our ego, and so you gotta manage the egos. It's like a real entity at that point. I love how you said that. So thrown there, like, kind of manage the egos is beautiful.
Yeah, so like everything from managing the people and their egos to managing the communication between each separate department and making sure everybody's talking to each other, and when they're not talking to each other, stepping in and filling that role for them and being like, hey, this is what we need, tell me what I need to tell this person. And then when the show comes around, like, I'm making sure that everybody is like on stage when they need to be on stage. Everybody has everything that they need in the green room. I'm running lights and sound for the production. So there's a lighting engineer and a sound engineer, and I'm calling all the lighting and sound cues for them. So, which is the most fun part for me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Just be like, ready, sound one, go sound one, and like,
you're literally an harmonizer, like our orchestra director, Like,
I love that.
That's what it is. I feel like it's really your role as your personality type. Like, you're supposed to be the one harmonizing, and you see how you do that in all kinds of ways. I love it.
Yeah, and I feel really grateful and blessed because not a lot of people. And I say this from a place of like non-ego at all, because I didn't realize this for a long time until people started pointing it out to me, that I really have this special gift of being able to be so logistical and also so deep in the spiritual world, because a lot of times those two things don't go together. Like, stage management is very logistical. It's like managing schedules, managing time, creating spreadsheets, like looking at budgets. And then the spiritual aspect is really like sitting and being still and being present and really being in that like feminine, divine feminine space of like softness. So that's really the magic I create on set now, is like, I have the logistical background, so I know what's being asked of people and the demands that are needing to be met. And I also know how to slow that down in a way that's helpful for people.
And you know what? I also think that this legitimates your role. Like, the fact that, like, I don't think anybody else could do what you're doing in terms of spiritually, you know, because as you're saying, you have to manage people's egos. For people egos to not get hurt, you know, and to not get injured, what you're doing has to come from someone who really has an idea what is going on, you know, like you have to have the authority to be able to tell them, hey, dude, I've done this yesterday, we had this issue, I was there having to deal with it, so now you listen to me, in a sense, you know what I mean? It's like, so that's how they perceive you. Is like, okay, she's not just someone coming here, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and she's trying to tell us how to be calm and how not to be anxious. She actually knows, and so we trust her. So I feel like you really cannot, I think like the role itself has to incorporate the spiritual part of it. Like it can't be someone like, oh, a yoga teacher that you invite, you know, like it has to come from someone who also has the stage management role in some way, you know, like, so I feel like you should definitely point, like that should be your audience, like stage managers, like people who are in your role, because otherwise it's not easy for people egos to step aside and listen to what someone has to say, unless it's the same thing as, you know, when you are the son of the CEO of the company, right? And you step in and you try to tell everybody what to do, and instead if you're someone who grew up in the company and you have been the waiter, you have been the busser, you have been the cook, you've been all the roles of the restaurant, and then when you talk to people, they're like, okay, he knows what he's doing. He's not just trying to talk from privilege or from the outside, you know, like he's been into this thing for a long time. So I think it gives a lot more legitimacy to what you're doing, the fact that you're actually there on the field to observe and to coordinate everything. And again, like I feel like we have this idea that spirituality and logistics don't go in the same way. As a scientist, I see everything as an extension of the same rules that we have in biology, for example. You know, like I see everything as like a cell that has to put all the processes together and harmonize everything, right? And so it's all mathematics. It's all physics, you know. So logistic, as much as spirituality, it's all an extension of the same laws. And so ultimately it's the same thing, and the same flow, you're just in different dimensions, you know. Like when you talk about spirituality, you're in the quantum field, you're in a quantum dimension, you're the spiritual divine dimension of our being, but it's still the same rules. And so once you have this attitude towards things, this lens on the world that has to do with how can I harmonize this better, how, like, you can see how things are misaligned, and you're like, okay, this can be better aligned in this way, better synchronized in this way. When you can do that at the Newtonian level, which is the physical level in which we are, then you can also translate it into the spiritual level. It's the same thing, right? It's the same concept. You just have to, I think it's beautiful that you've had this breakthrough thanks to the channeling experience, because that really allowed you to access this other phase, you know, like, because this is you, you know, this is the harmonizer, this is you, the director of the orchestra, that's your role. But for you to have that role in all these different spheres, you need to access those spheres. And that's why it's so important for us to evolve, because we all have a role. You have the harmonizer role, everybody has a different role, but the same role translates also in the quantum field and at the spiritual level. But until we access that role, we access our higher self in that level, we harmonize ourselves, we understand who we are in that other level. Until we do that, we cannot embody, you know, who we are and become guides for others and examples for others to follow, or even just do a role, because they're followers, they're leaders. Not everybody is meant to lead others, and that's totally normal. But until we do that, you know, like, we are not capable of embodying our full self until we have a breakthrough. So it's so important for people, and that's why I do this podcast, I host this podcast, because it's so important for people to access their consciousness, their conscious level, so that they can become the better follower, the better leader, the better whatever role they have at every scale of our universe, and at the spiritual and divine level too.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that in, how important it is for those two to work together, because I'm so grateful for having both of them, because if I hadn't have had that connection to my true essence and gone into the entertainment industry, like I would have just kept going and going and going into burnout and not realized that anything was wrong, because that's the normality there. It's just like working from burnout, that's just what you do. And because I was able to have that deeper connection with myself, with my intuition, with my spirit, I was really able to see the stark difference between when I worked on productions where it's like every day I showed up to work and I was like, okay, what dumpster fire am I going to have to put out today? Like, who's going to be fighting with who? Like, who's going to be in a pissy mood? And the productions I worked on where I felt really full in the best way at the end of the day. Like, I felt like creatively fired up and inspired, and it's like, wow, what we're creating is really amazing. It's going to change lives. And through having that connection with my intuition, I was really able to be like, okay, I don't like this production that has me like going towards burnout. Like, that makes me not want to even be in the industry anymore. Like, I'm spending all this time and energy working on something that don't even care about. That is like, this content doesn't even mean anything to me.
And were you already doing what you're doing today, or were you just working as a stage manager at that time? Like,
yeah, I was just working as a stage manager at that time.
So you were basically, so initially, like, you started getting into this world, mm-hmm. and you just started comparing, okay, this is the way in which I like for things to be done, mm-hmm. this is the way in which instead leaves me burnout at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So you start just basically comparing different environments. Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there was this one production where I was just like, feeling so unhappy, and just get him away from the microphone. And I was like, you know what? No, like, this is unacceptable. I don't want to work this way anymore. I'm going to intentionally seek out the producers and directors I've worked with before that I felt really inspired with, and that left me feeling creatively full at the end of the day. And I want to see if they'll let me bring in my energy healing work, and so I can do the stage management and the energy healing together. And so I did that. And
you suggested that to them, and they said yes?
Yeah.
Wow. Who was the first person who said yes to your method?
Yeah. His name was Andy Perkins, and he's an incredible theater guy. And him and Erica Baker were the first two people that I did this with. And they were this is when I was in Kansas City in the theater world. And yeah, they were incredibly in tune human beings. Like, they really understood the importance of getting your team on the same page every day, of taking time to settle and center and move slowly. And I think they both had, Andy has an improv background, so I feel like he was really open to the flexibility of that, of like bringing in breath work at the beginning of every rehearsal, taking time for intuitive movement after lunch, making sure that people were always on the same page together. And Erica, actually, really interestingly, she has a very scientific background, and so hearing you explain like the way a cell works and all the different parts work together, I feel like, I don't want to speak for her, but you saying that, like, what it feels like to me is she understood the importance of having all of those pieces together to harmonize the production. And so, yeah, those productions that I did with them were incredible when I started being able to incorporate the healing as well as the stage management. Like, we were only working like maybe 25 or 30 hours a week and producing sold out shows. And one of the shows was a completely original children's show that I worked on with Erica Baker, and it was called Kingdom of One. And I hope it's so magical. I hope to bring it to the entertainment industry someday, and bring it to the screen.
As children or not?
As the children's show, yeah.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah, and the audience's response from that show was like, we spent maybe 25 or 30 hours a week working on it. Everybody was so excited to show up every day. We really created something beautiful together. And our audiences grew and grew and grew, and we actually extended the production because so many people wanted to see it. and we had the Kansas City Young Audiences theater group, like a pretty prominent theater group in Kansas City, come to us and be like, hey, we've heard about your show, we've seen it, we want to pay you to tour this thing to schools all over the state.
You did it?
And we did it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's definitely a success.
Yeah. And it was because we created that harmonious, creatively collaborative environment. People felt the transmission, like you were talking about earlier. They felt the energy coming from that project, and it changed them. It's nourishing. Yeah.
It's completely different, you know, like if things are harmonized, it's like what the kind of light they shine, the kind of energy they shine nourishes you, nourishes the audience, nourishes them. And as you're saying, I love when you said, you know, that you felt creatively full at the end of the day, you know, like, which is the feeling of like, if we do things the right way, like divinely speaking, like in the divine order of things, if we will do things divinely, we will never need to even eat. In the sense that like everything, like we lose energy, we waste energy, we burn calories, not because we're doing activities, but because we're doing things in a misaligned way. Yeah, like if you are aligned, literally, like you burn lesser calories, like you're just simply nourished, you know, like everything becomes nourishment. Even your muscles contracting nourish you back, and then it's like an electric car, and you know, when you brake, it recharges. It's the same thing, you know, like, so everything we do becomes a recharge, you know, it becomes energy that we absorb. So we're full, and we keep being full, we're never empty, you know, like, so that's really how it is. So people feel nourished from that. They go back home, they're full, you know. You don't need to, you're not craving something to quench the hole you have inside, and you don't even know why you feel unhappy, right? You're full. Yeah Feeling full is what we are supposed to do, you know, at the end of a production, at the end of a day, at the end of a movie, at the end of a theater play, you know, like we're supposed to feel full, not to feel empty. When you feel empty is because something wrong happened along the way, you know, like we shouldn't have happened, like, you know, and you guys can confirm it in your daily life, like when you, even your children, you know, like if you have a good life with your children and everything is harmonized, you're full by taking care of your children. If your children cry all the time, they're unhappy, they have issues, then even being with your own children that it's supposed to be a loving type of relationship becomes draining, becomes like, oh my gosh, I want a babysitter. So everything can be nourishing, or it can be depleting, you know, it depletes us. And so it's fundamental that we keep shining, you know, like when things are divine, they're really nourishing you, they nourish you. And so what you're doing is incredible. And so you started working with all these different directors that basically allowed you to, this is also another thing that I would like to give them credit for, like the fact that they allowed you to do what you wanted to do. It's not something common as well, right?
Yeah, and that's where I felt really divinely guided, because it's not something that, like, people don't just give stage managers the kind of authority to do those things. Like, they're like, no, like, you need to keep us on schedule. Like, why would you want us to take a pause right now? Like, that's not, like, you can't do that. Only, like, the directors and the producers, like, only I can do that. So I felt very, like, divinely guided to these people that allowed me to do this on their sets.
And I think that also has been a huge capability on your side to like understand who you could do those things to. You know, the fact that you have realized, okay, these people don't know what they're doing. They don't value people, because if you allow if you allow the environment to be around by burnout people, that means that you don't value them. You don't value their feelings. You don't value their health. So I love that I think this is a wisdom that we all should have, and I didn't have it for a long time. I feel like everybody has a different role in life, and someone who is an harmonizer like her, you need to have this kind of like capability of discerning and of being guided, the wisdom of being guided towards people who already understand the value of harmonizing. You know, like they want to have people who are not drained, who are not burnout. They want for people to, ultimately before you told them to do that, they were kind of doing that on their own in a sense, right? And so you just basically said, you know what, how about you delegate this to me, in a sense, because you felt, harmonized by their own way of leading the stage. Obviously, a director cannot be everywhere at the same time. Like, that's the stage manager. I think what you did is incredible, because that's what the stage manager should do.
Yeah. And I really do want to really make the point of, like, when you're allowing yourself to follow your intuition and be divinely guided, how easy everything is. Like, I say that I set this intention to seek out producers and directors who would allow me to do this on set. And once I decided I wanted to do that for myself and followed my intuition, like, I didn't have to try. I wasn't efforting. These people just showed up in my life. Like, Erica was friends with one of my other theater friends, and I went to my friend's house one night and she was there. Like, and we just started talking and connecting, and I did some Reiki on her, and she was like, oh wow, people have done Reiki on me before, but I've never actually felt anything, and this time I really felt it. Like, that wasn't something where I was like, let me go to a networking meeting and see who I can connect with and make all this effort to try and put myself out there. Like, ambition, of course, is important, and taking action is important, but it was like, in Andy, he was like a friend of a friend, and he asked me to stage manage his production, like, without me even knowing that he was, like, in this sphere of, like, really allowing more of the spiritual work. Like, these people, like, when you're following your intuition, your divine guidance, like, everything just starts to show up for you. It's easy. And I feel like that's really important to say, how easy it is.
Thank you for saying that. I feel like we all should learn from your experience and from this wisdom that you're sharing with us. Thank you so much, because it's true. Like, when you start again reconnect with your light, then you become like this star that has the gravitational attraction. You're really like become this thing that just attracts things, and we are all part of the same reality. We don't realize that we are guided by forces that are invisible to us, but they exist. Like, if you're meant to be in a field, like you were meant to be in the entertainment industry, you start channeling yourself, like following this wave of even jobs that ultimately where people of that industry hang out as well. Like, you ultimately got yourself into that exact field, even without the intention of doing that, because you don't become a waiter in order for you to become an actor,
Yeah.
or to become a stage manager. But like, it happened because it's the same flow. You channel yourself on the same flow in which people of the industry were, and you end up meet. So it's beautiful. So I think we should all work with intentions, and this is something that manifesting is so important. And manifesting has to do with, yes, doing the effort. Like, don't get me wrong, guys, obviously you have to put the effort for you to realize things, but the effort of pushing away things that don't serve you is also an effort. Like what you did was like, I don't want to work with these people anymore. I don't want to channel myself in these wave that doesn't serve me anymore. I want to go into something that I feel full and harmonized by, and like inspired by. Like, that's what we need to do. I feel like that's regardless of the field. I think this is a message that comes through from your story that is important for people to hear, which is that when you are in the divine flow of things, you can tell, like, it's a flow that nourishes you. It comes easy in the sense that you don't have to fight against the current. You're in the current, like, you're doing the right thing. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And this is incredible, like what you're doing. And tell me, so I want to know about your story, because you told me a whole second side of your life, which I don't even know how you've been able to do all of these things with also having to deal with the issues you told me about. So this story is even more inspiring, I think, that you've been able to stay on track with all the things you had to deal with as well on the other side, which is the side of your health. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I was stage managing when this health issue started to happen for me, and I did end up taking a break from my stage management, partly because of my health and partly because COVID. Obviously, we couldn't do any theater during COVID. So yeah, when the last production I worked on before COVID I started having panic attacks, and I started having a lot of anxiety and trouble focusing. And like, I had always been an amazing multitasker, and you have to be as a stage manager. Like, there's 20 things going on at once that you need to keep track of. And like, I had never had a panic attack before in my life. I had never had any anxiety. Like, of course, I'd had nervousness, like when I was doing something new or something exciting, but I had never had anxiety. And so I was like, this is really weird. Like, what's going on? And so I brought it to my mom, and because we're very close, and I was like, this is really weird. Like, do you have any insight on this? And she shared with me that in her side of the family, when women turn 30, they go into this really intense perimenopause where they lose all the hormones in their body.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she didn't tell you until then?
She didn't. And that made me a little bit angry at first, because I was like, why didn't you tell me this might happen to me? Like, and then after I sat with it for a little bit, I realized, like, she had actually done the right thing. Like, if she had told me about it, I would have been worried about it. Like, shit, is this going to happen to me? And like, that was what she shared with me. Like, I was just really keeping my fingers crossed and hoping that this wouldn't happen to you.
Yeah, and you know, like from a placebo effect standpoint, I think she did the right thing as well, in the sense that obviously you're basically self-manifesting, you know, what is going to happen to you, because you tap into that reality. Maybe it's going to happen regardless, you know, because if this is a genetic thing, you can't really do a lot about genetics, but you know, you would have been probably manifesting it even earlier, because you know, you're gonna start thinking about it, and maybe it's stress related, and so you're gonna it's just gonna happen like earlier to you, and you're never gonna know whether, I feel like you will have been not worried, but like wondering your whole life, had I done this to myself? You know, have I done this to myself, or would that happen anyways if my mom would have not told me anything about that? So I feel like in the end she did the right thing. So what kind of hormones, like estrogens?
Everything.
All hormones?
Yeah.
Suddenly just stop? What is crazy? Like,
yeah.
Like, I can only imagine like the effect on your health. So you only had panic attacks?
So it started with panic attacks and severe anxiety, and that was, for the first couple months, it was happening just around my cycle, like the first couple of days of my cycle. And I was like, okay, like, I can deal with this, like 2-3 days out of the month having panic attacks and anxiety. Like, the rest of the month I'm fine, we're good. And then it got a lot worse. It was like panic attacks and anxiety and night sweats and insomnia, and my brain completely lost the ability to multitask. Like, I couldn't even drive and be talking on the phone at the same time. Like, you know, safely on Bluetooth speaker, like talking on the phone, like not even with the phone in my hand. I couldn't even do those two things at the same time, because my brain was like already at capacity trying to manage the anxiety and the panic and the, you know, lack of sleep from the insomnia and hot flashes and all of that.
Sounds like menopause.
Yeah, it was when I finally got the correct support for it, I realized that's what it was.
So what happened? Like, let's go like chronologically. So you start having all these issues around when, like 2020?
It was when I turned 30, so that was 8 years ago. So it was like 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's when I was like, oh shit, like I can't multitask, so obviously I can't do my job as a stage manager.
Wow.
I had another job at that time too. I was also working for my parents in their office. So, and luckily they're amazing people and super supportive, so they allowed me to step back from, I still was working for them and still doing my job, but I stepped back a lot with my hours. to help manage this health crisis that I was having. And at first, I think, I don't want to speak for my mom, but maybe she didn't want to believe that this is fully what was happening to me. So because she had a holistic hormone doctor that she sees, but first we went to a gynecologist, and I was in a pretty bad state at that time. I was having a lot more bad days than good days, and so I was just give me a solution. Tell me how to fix this, how to get rid of it. And we went to a couple different gynecologists, and they took labs to test my hormone levels and my blood work and all of that. And they were like, oh, your hormone panels came back normal. And so, this is, and I had explained to them I never had panic attacks or anxiety or anything before. This was totally new to me.
So how can it be your blood test be normal if all your hormones went down?
So that's the thing. They were like, here's some birth control, here's some pamphlets on panic, anxiety support groups, and sent me on my way.
Wow.
I took those several months later when we finally recognized that I needed the help of this hormone doctor that my mom had been seeing. I took those exact same blood results that the doctors had told me were normal to this hormone doctor. And she was like, you have no these tests show that you have no hormones in your body.
How is that possible that for them? So wait a minute, because when they do blood tests, they base their results, the fact that they tell you yes, you're normal or not, on average values that they believe are normal based on Western science and Western healthcare. And I am also a whistleblower of science fraud, so I know firsthand how messed up real these things are in Western healthcare. And most people don't actually know that Western healthcare itself is being created after the Second World War. So before then, we didn't have the healthcare we have today. So it's been really created as a way to make money out of people. So it was just a way of making profit to recover from the money spent in World War II, for example. And it was based on the experiments done during the Nazi regime in Germany. So all the patents, that they created through the experiments on people, then they created the current, what we today call healthcare. And so ultimately, the whole goal of Western healthcare is not to heal people, but to keep people within the narrow window of I'm healthy enough to work, but I'm not awakened. You know what I mean? So they don't care about your actual healing as a person, as an individual, your actual growth. What they care about is that you're functional and enough for you to produce, for profit, for capitalism. So it's interesting to me, however, that the hormone levels that they found, they're considered normal by Western healthcare in general. And then when you go to a holistic doctor, they tell you, no, you have no hormones. It's the opposite. That's so interesting. I would like to go deeper into that, maybe with this doctor potentially as well.
Oh, I would be happy to give you her information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know she's one of only 3 doctors in the whole country that does what she does.
Wow. So what did she tell you?
Yeah, so the first question she asked me was, how do you want to handle... She was like, she does bioidentical hormones, which is where they test you and figure out the exact percentage of what kind of hormones you need for your body.
Okay.
So the difference between these hormones that she does and birth control, I'm not an expert or a scientist, but it's the birth control is just a standard dosage for every woman. What she does is takes your blood, your information from your body, and creates specific dosage of each type of hormone that you need. So I was on 2 different, they're called troches. One of them was testosterone, and then another one was a combination of 2 or 3 different kinds of estrogen and oxytocin, and then something else.
And what would, like, this is what your doctor gave you, or what she gave you?
This is what the holistic doctor gave me. Yeah. No, the regular doctor just gave me birth control and sent me on my way.
That's crazy to me. Like, that you had all of these symptoms and they just got rid of you with like a pamphlet on anxiety groups and like a birth control, which is like, birth controls are usually estrogen mimicking, you know, so it's like if you didn't have any hormones, that's not going to be enough, and it's also, you know, like, can be even detrimental in the sense that like that's not the dosage that you need, and there's so many other reasons why like birth control can be detrimental in so many other ways. But like, again, like, your problem was, I don't know how rare it is, in the sense that maybe this is something so rare that most doctors don't think about it, you know, like this, like, obviously they go first with like the most common stuff, right? At the same time though, like, if like, it's, I feel like it's interesting, and I would like to go, probably we're gonna talk about it in another episode, guys, because this fact that the whole average that doctors consider as normal levels of hormones are actually, you know, completely misaligned with what you're supposed to have in terms of how much hormones in our blood we're supposed to have. That's interesting to go deeper into. So she gave you all these mixes of pills, and what happened? Like, did you improve?
I did improve. And, you know, it was a process, because it was finding out, like, you know, how much of each dosage did I need to take, like, to get myself back up to normal levels, because it's different for every person. And that's something that I really appreciated about her that I had never had with a Western medicine doctor before, was she really took me into account as an individual. And so,
how crazy is that? By the way, just saying, you know, like, it's like she thought of me as an individual. She took of me, like, that's what we're supposed to do, right? That's when you want to heal someone. Everybody is different, and like that's what Eastern medicine and holistic medicine does.
And I knew that we were on the same page, and that I would like her the first time I met her, because one of the first questions she asked me after figuring out that I needed to be on these hormones was, what do you want to do about your fertility? And I've never wanted children. I've always known that about myself. I even tried to get my gynecologist to give me a hysterectomy when I was like 23.
Wow.
And I like kids. I do. I just don't want them. And so I was like, you know, I'm not worried about it. I don't want kids. And she was like, okay, that's fine. So that's just going to change what we're going to do for you. And anytime I had told a Western medicine doctor that I did not want to have children, I'm sure you know what happened. Are you sure? You might change your mind. You don't want to do something that you're going to regret later. Are you really sure you don't want to have kids? A lot of people change their mind. And to just have someone be like, respect my choice and not try and convince me otherwise was incredible.
Yeah, I think, you know, like, not everybody has the same kind of clarity that you have. Obviously, you can't deal with an adolescent going to a doctor and say, I want a hysterectomy, right? So you can't do that. But at the same time, because they're also legally liable, but at the same time, yes, I think there are, like, if you are aligned and awakened, you can tell when you have met someone who has really reached the end of their consciousness, in a sense, on that specific field, and be like, I know for a fact I'm not gonna have children. I don't want to have children. You know, like, and it's important because this changed her therapy for you and allowed her to give you a therapy that maybe was even more effective, thanks to knowing that you don't want to have children anyways. Otherwise, you would have had to maybe have a 10 years window in which you could only take care of your problems a little bit, but not fully, to preserve your capability of having children that you don't want anyways. So it's like, what's the point? So I feel like it's fundamental to understand that, you know, we're not, everybody has a different box, you know, like I feel like Western medicine tries to constantly put us in a box, which is, you know, the box needed for us to perpetuate society, to become good employees, good moms, you know, to perpetuate taxpayers and consumers and patients through our childbearing capacity, right? And so, and instead we're just people, you know, like women are just people. And maybe you as a person, you don't want to have children. You don't care about that. You don't want to contribute to society by putting more children in the world. You want to do it through your genius, through your consciousness, through your capabilities in different ways, through your skills. And so that's your priority, you know. That's important that she allowed you to have your role. You know, it's thanks to her that today you're still having your role also, and you're still capable of multitasking, or are you?
I am, yeah.
So tell me about like the effects you had, like with the hormones she gave you.
Yeah, so it really helped bring down the anxiety. Like, I didn't really have panic attacks anymore. It really helped with the insomnia. Like, I had it every once in a while, like when I was on my cycle, but not all the time like I was having it before. It really helped with the night sweats as well, which also helped with my sleep. And ultimately, like, I was probably, before I started taking the hormones, I was probably functioning at about like maybe 30% of my capacity every day. And after I started taking them, I got to maybe like 50 or 60%. Ultimately, though, when in 2020, I decided that the hormones, they were helping, but I still wasn't back to where I wanted to be. And so I talked to my hormone doctor about it, and I talked to a new gynecologist I had found who didn't have a lot of knowledge on hormones, but she was actually very open to learning from the hormone doctor I was working with. And
I was a doctor.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
And she actually listened to like what I wanted and needed, and listened to the information that the hormone doctor gave her, and we all decided it was best that I get a hysterectomy.
So you did get it in the end?
Yeah, so in November 2020, like 2 days after the election, I got my hysterectomy, and within 2 days I was back up. I was still on the hormones, but with the hysterectomy, within 2 days of having it, I was back up to functioning at like 80 to 90% capacity every day.
Wow. I find this so interesting, the fact that at 23, before even knowing about your issue, right? Because we were talking about a lot earlier, you already knew that you needed to get an hysterectomy. Because I feel like we don't realize that we are guided all the time by our higher self, you know? And so a lot of times we make choices, like, well, you know, the fact that you're so convinced at 23 that you want to have an hysterectomy, it is not something that all women go through. Like, it's a choice that is not common at all. And the fact that you were designed to get to 23 years of age and be like, I want an hysterectomy, it was because otherwise that was going to prevent you from being your full self. You know, because genetically speaking, maybe you have this signature, you know, that make you develop certain things when you're 30, then you need an hysterectomy anyways, right? And so before then, you were already designed to get that, I want an hysterectomy, you know? It's interesting, like we have these things all the time and we don't really listen to ourselves, because it's crazy, right? Society tells you, are you kidding me? Like, you want an hysterectomy? Wait, what? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
But no, that's like, you specifically are designed to be like that, and so you needed that for you to have your place in the world. And you know, like I always say that there are different ways of reproducing. Like, there is a beautiful book that is on biology and evolution, but I think everybody should read it. It's very interesting. It's called The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. And in one of the parts of the book, so it says that we are designed to at some point get to a second level of evolution, which is the evolution of the ideas. So if until now we have evolved as humans, and so we evolved genetically, epigenetically, you know, and we have children, and so we make children and we reproduce ourselves by making children, right? There is a point in which because of our speaking capacities, and because we write, and because we make movies, we are gonna start reproducing ourselves through ideas. Ideas are going to become the new genes, you know? And so if before it was like the genes evolved because they've created this body, and thanks to that they've been able to survive to evolutionary pressure and all these things, and they have better capabilities of surviving, and that's why you got that idea of having an hysterectomy, because it was your genes telling you for you to survive and be successful, you need to get an hysterectomy at 23.
I love that. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, we don't realize on how many levels our genes affect us, but also, we are perfect, we just have to listen to ourselves. And we don't do that because we live in a society that has a hidden agenda of which we are part, and so we're getting indoctrinated to fit into a role that is not our role. It's a role that society needs from us for us to have. And so what he says is that the second level is and this is obvious. Before even reading that part of the book, I already knew. I was thinking about the same thing, because it's obvious it's going to happen, And so imagine an idea is like Jesus or Martin Luther King, or, like an idea is something that you say, a philosophy, Socrates, a philosophy that you say, and then based on it's like a gene, it creates its own it creates its own people that try to protect it, and it creates, so ideas are also the second level of our evolution. So in the same way in which you had the hysterectomy idea, and you had to get it in the end, and you got it anyways, in the same way you're also creating new ideas in the field of entertainment that are spreading through entertainment. So you're reproducing yourself in just a different way. I reproduce myself through books, through this podcast, through like sharing my ideas with people. And because my ideas are aligned with the divine, as much as your ideas are aligned to that, they perpetuate themselves in others because they work, because they're real, because they're true. Like the truth, it's the only thing that ultimately survives, And so the level of ideas, it doesn't matter if you die, your idea can exist even without you, So you're ultimately reproducing. Actually, nowadays, reproducing through ideas is a much better way of reproducing ourselves. Because when you reproduce ourselves genetically, epigenetic and genetics, all these things put together, and a partner that you have to find for you to mate, it's a sexual kind of evolution. And so what you're creating, what you're generating, it's not you, right? It's another being who is partly you and partly someone else. And plus all the variability that accumulates due to environmental factors and other factors. So you're not actually reproducing yourself. You're not cloning yourself. You're just filtering yourself through a lot of layers. And a part of that is you. And so a part of that is perpetuating itself genetically, but a lot of it gets lost when you die, And instead, when we reproduce ourselves through ideas, through books, through movies, through our work, we're actually like cloning ourselves in a sense. It's like not just cloning, but like we're cloning our higher self. We're reproducing the truth that instead of filtering out things, we're actually exposing even more and giving more than what we could genetically. So I think we are at a level of reproduction through ideas that is way more important and efficient and effective than reproduction as sexual reproduction, and genetic reproduction.
Yeah, and I did have someone say to me recently, like, Sarah, like, you're such a nurturing person. Like, they weren't saying it in like a way that they thought I had made a mistake with my hysterectomy, but they were like, you're such a nurturing person, like, I'm surprised that you didn't want to have kids. And I was like, I want to nurture myself. I want to nurture my environment. I want to nurture the people around me. Like,
how would I do it with a child?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you can only dedicate yourself to a child.
Yeah,
it's like it's a choice. It's like a mission in the world. If you're a mother, it's like I suggest you guys to check out these other episodes with Tori Wildeberg, and she says that before even having a child, she felt, energetically speaking, like when she delivered her child, she recognized her energy had always been with her from the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's like, I grew up with you. Is that incredible, right? It's like having a satellite that revolves around you. You already have it. So I feel like some people, I'm having goosebumps. I feel like some people already have children. You know, we are meant, energetically speaking, to give rise to this satellite that revolves around us, you know, and that then replaces us when we're not here anymore at the physical level. Some people have it, some people don't, you know, and so I feel like you didn't. You're like, I don't have this thing, I don't have this need, I'm this person is supposed to coordinate and harmonize everybody. How can I even do that if I have a child around? It's your role, you know, like everybody is a role, and your role is to do that, and you can't possibly have a child. You have 2 beautiful cats, and I think that's enough.
Yeah.
To support you, but they're also independent. You know, that's, you know, you could have had a dog. You didn't. You know, there's a reason for that. You know, it's because cats are animals who are also very independent, and you don't need to take care of them all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I love dogs, and I've always said, like, if I had a partner and they wanted a dog, I'd be happy to get it if they're willing to do everything it needs to be taken care of, because I want to make sure, like, and that's that, we haven't talked about this, and but it's like what I call sacred selfishness. It's like reclaiming that word selfish, and it's like, no, like, it's sacredly selfish for me to nurture myself and take care of myself and make sure my cup is filled up so much, because I feel like I have so much that I want to overflow from that cup onto the world. And it's really important for me, like, my number one value in life is my health and self-care above anything else, because if I'm not healthy, if I'm not taking care of myself, then I can't spread my message and my healing and my love to everybody else in a way that's going to feel good. So
yeah, you become, like, you know, like, either we are taking or we're giving, right? It's important to always stay in a state of giving so that you keep giving, you know. Like, I feel like there is, as you're saying, there is this misconception that selfishness is a negative thing. So I don't even want to call it selfishness. I feel like we don't have words for it. You know, we don't have words for taking care of ourselves. You know, you see, taking care of ourselves is 3 words already. So we don't have one word to say that's not selfishness, you know. It's really a way of making sure that you're full. You see how this word full comes up all the time, right? It's gonna go in the title most likely. You see, like, you have to be full for you to attract things. So to attract, but also to spread love. It's like either you're shining on others because you're full enough that you're shining, or you're empty, and so you become a black hole and you attract things in the sense of sucking the light out of others. And so there is this misconception that, and Osho talks about that, you know, that also Catholicism, and I have founded a Christian church, but like Catholicism is different. I grew up Catholic.
So did I.
And so Catholicism, it's been a way of using Christ and like his doctrine, in putting it in the meatball of the institutions and the, you know, Roman Empire or whatever, and to instrumentalize it, to use it for their own purposes, right? And so ultimately they created a whole doctrine around it that has nothing to do with the actual teaching of Jesus. But his teachings were ultimately that you have to shine. Jesus shined, you know, like, if you read the gospel, you can tell, oh my gosh, this person shines. And he wasn't kind and nice to everybody all the time. Sometimes he will just say things like, this is a hypocrite, you know, like, he will say the truth, you know. So it's not about being kind and nice all the time, people pleasing, like Catholicism teaches us to be people pleasing, to love others more than ourselves. Instead, there is a book of Osho, I think it's called something like Love Yourself Above All, or something like that, in which he says that the Eastern philosophy instead prioritizes loving yourself first, because once you love yourself first, then the love overflows and you shine love. And this is true. This is absolutely true. I experienced it myself as well, that if you don't love yourself enough, then people suck things out of you, and you get to the point of not having anything to give anymore, and then you become mean, and then you become bitter. Then you start being the one being in need. You see, like this constant, flow of things. You enter into this, you get sucked up into this dynamic of emptying and refilling and emptying and refilling, which is ultimately abusive, and instead what you want to do is to allow yourself to be full all the time by getting love from the source and not from others, from like yourself. You're creating this engine, that creates its own inner flow, because the fuller you are, the more you feel yourself, and then you feel others around you, and they become full too. And instead of creating this dynamic of emptying and feeling, which is narcissistic abuse, you create a different type of thing, which is the true engine, the true divine engine of the universe, which is that we have this conception that things have to fill and empty and refill and refill constantly. This is not how the universe works. Like the divine source, it's always full, because the engine works that the more you love yourself, the more you love yourself, the more you love others, the more you love. So it becomes like a never ending. Is like it's like an atomic thing, like it's a never ending source. It's infinite, but you have to get into that flow, and to get into that flow you have to love yourself. As you're saying, you have to make sure that your cup is full. And I don't like the word selfishness, because I don't think that's what you mean either.
No,
I feel like
it's
we don't
not.
have words for that. It's really this refilling you, making sure that you're full all the time by loving yourself, and by, it's not a matter of including more but excluding more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's like as soon as something pokes a hole in your fullness, because we are full already, we are born full. As soon as something pokes a hole, makes a crack, or stains your light, then you push it out. So if you're excluding, what you're doing is not actually being selfish, is making sure that you don't get hurt, right? Because you're already full, so you're preserving your light. And so what we need to do is really, we need to preserve our light. We need to make sure that we're joyful all the time. And if you're joyful, then you talk to people and you smile at them, and they're like, oh, and they smile too. It's contagious. It's contagious because it's supposed to be. That's what the universe is. Like, love is contagious. So if you love yourself, then you love others, and others love you, and they love others, and it becomes an atomic bomb that explodes, and it's incredible.
Yeah. And I really appreciate the way that you just described all of that, like, because that emptying and filling, that abuse is exactly what happens in the entertainment industry. It's this really abusive relationship between...
There's so much ego.
Yeah, and also, like, it's this concept of, I have to give all of myself to the production. I have to give all of myself to the creative energy. And that's a really important piece that I work with when I do one-on-one work with people. And I also have a new group program I'm working on, is giving people the tools to bring them back to their own, like, self-love and self-worth and understanding, and being able to, because that's the way that we create this innovative content that's really impactful, is when everybody on the production is full all the time. That's the only way that happens, is when we're all full all the time. Listen
to that. This is wisdom. Yeah. Seriously, it's beautiful what you're doing. Yes, you're right. Like, everybody has to be full, but not full of ego. That's the stain you need to get rid of. That's the problem. Like, that's the problem we need to get rid of. Like, the crack that we need to get rid of. But, like, it's and then I've talked about trauma and ego a lot in the previous episodes. It's really like, there is that trauma creates like a crack in people's light, and that allows something bad to flow through it, which becomes ego and grandiosity, and they need to oppress others and to be the best all the time by putting others lower than you, which is a need that when you are into your loving self, you don't really need to, that you shine, and you all can shine in the same way. There's no envy, there is no jealousy, there is no I am if you are less than me. Like, it's not like that. Like, it's like when you love yourself, you know that that's just a beautiful feeling, and you want for others to love themselves in the same way too, because it shines and it feeds you and it nurtures you and it's beautiful. So yeah, like I agree. Like how do you deal so well with the ego in the industry?
Yeah. It took me a minute.
Tell me about it.
To really learn how to navigate that. And honestly, it's the way I found is through compassion, but compassion with boundaries. So
boundaries, guys. Boundaries are so important. This is something that I also had to learn late in my life, in the sense that I also come from a family where, like, you know, boundaries are the enemy in a sense. It's like there are a lot of dysfunctions, and so I had to learn to put boundaries much later in my life, in the sense that I will put boundaries, but in a way that I thought I was putting boundaries, but I really wasn't. And so boundaries are just part of the selfishness, you know, that you're talking about. It's like it's a way of living out what doesn't serve you, and so preserving this light that you already have. You just have to preserve it, to avoid putting things on top of it, to avoid cracking it. And so boundaries is the way in which you're like, no, I don't want you to do that. And there's so many simple, like, I feel like we don't realize how powerful it is to put boundaries, even in a simple way. Like, someone talks to you and you're like, I don't want to talk to this guy, and you just don't respond. And it's like, it's so powerful, because the second time they do that, they already know that they're overcoming, they're trespassing a boundaries, you know, like they already know. So it's a different feeling, you know. If you every time pretend you don't have any boundary, or like you don't even pretend you don't have any boundary, then people keep doing things, and there's nothing, no punishment for them. There's no backlash. There's nothing. So they keep doing it. And he said, and the same is, you know, we're talking about eyes, you know, and the energy that comes through, right? We constantly are absorbing things from our environment. And so we can decide to be permeable to those things, or to be like, no, I don't want to, you know.
One of the most powerful things one of my mentors ever told me, I don't know if it was something from her or somebody else, but she was like, no is a full sentence.
Yeah.
Because as a healer, and most of the healers that I've known, like, there is this tendency to overgive and oversympathize. And so putting a boundary on that of like, so someone who's got a really big ego and who yelled, like a director, I was working with a director one time, and he was constantly contradicting himself with where he wanted the scene to be blocked, and yelling at the actors when they got it wrong, even though he had told them two different things, and they just asked a question about which one he actually wanted them to do. They're like, well, you told me to do it two different ways, so which way would you like me to do it? And then he just exploded. And it was like, okay, I see you. I understand that reaction is coming from a place of whatever it is for you, like not feeling worthy. Like maybe something happened to you when you were little, like maybe you had an abusive parent, or your uncle yelled at you a lot when you like misbehaved, or whatever the trauma is. Like, you know, we all have trauma, and it informs our activities and our behaviors and how we think we need to protect ourselves in the world. And, you know, so much compassion for that, because at some point that behavior did really protect us or keep us safe. And now we have the choice to choose differently. So seeing that person for who they are and all their wholeness of like, I see why, you know, even if I don't know the exact reason, it's like, I am a bit psychic, so sometimes I do. But it's like, I see that you had a trauma happen to you that made you react this way when these things happened. And I understand that. And that's not okay. Like, yes, I see you and your wholeness, and that's inappropriate, that's not okay.
It's important to use and, like this is something like that we learn also through neuro-linguistic programming, like to avoid words like but, however, things like that, because you can't at the same time acknowledge someone's feelings and then say but at the end. Like you're basically denying what you just said. And in their mind, you're creating the association, okay, this person is dismissing my feelings, and so why would I have to listen to the rest, right? And instead, once they acknowledge your feelings and you end this, they have to swallow the whole sentence.
Yeah.
And the whole sentence includes the part in which you say, this is not okay. Like, yes, this exists and this is not okay. But instead of saying but or however, things that deny what you just said. So this is important in communication, and it's important too. And what did he respond?
Well, let's go to the second part of the story. Neuro-linguistic programming, ego, and then discuss how did he actually respond.
So in that particular instance, I hadn't built up quite enough confidence in myself yet to have that conversation with him. So I just mitigated the situation as best I could and smoothed it over the best I could between the actors and the director and the other people in the cast that were there that saw that happening and were like, oh God, I hope that doesn't happen to me. So yeah, because that was very, very early on in my stage managing, and I was still really learning a lot about energy
Pretty brave,
healing.
by the way.
Yeah. So if I had gone back and done that now, like, I feel like I'm so strong in my own power in holding that space that I hope that he would have responded in a softer way.
What did he do?
But I don't know, what would have happened. But now when that happens, like, and that's honestly, like, one of my private clients, something that we worked on was really building up her power and her intuition. Because she did have, she is a woman of color, and her boss was an older white gentleman, and there was some inappropriate racist things, like not overt, but definitely there. And she didn't like the way he was running things and needed to have and wanted to have some really hard conversations with him. And so we worked on, like, how do you connect to your power? How do you speak in a way that's compassionate and that your words can be heard and understood in the way that you mean them to, and not create this defensiveness from the other person? So that's something that we worked on together, and she went to her boss and she had some hard conversations with him, and they went incredibly well. Like, he was open. Yeah, he was open and he listened, and she was like, no, we need to give this other woman of color, like, a raise, and he gave her more. She was like, we need to give her a bigger raise than we were going to, and that ended up happening. And, another producer, I just did one session with her, and, everybody's different. Some, like, this other private client I had was in a 3-month program. This other woman, after just one session, she had a boss that was really, like, what she told me was he was really taking all of his anger and frustration about the industry, because this was when the strikes were happening, out on them. And so after our session, the next time that he had an outburst like that, she straight up said to him, like, hey, this is not okay. This is what your reaction is doing to your team. And his response was, I'm so sorry. You're right. I shouldn't be acting this way and treating people this way.
That's incredible. That's an incredible result.
Yeah. So, it really, really makes a difference when you do the work on yourself, when you love yourself enough to give yourself that self-work and that space to do it. Like, again, coming back to what we were talking about before, when you follow your intuition and it's easy. Like, these producers and directors just showed up in my life organically. It's like, when you're in that space, those scarier confrontational conversations become easy because you're so much in your own power and intuition and strength.
You're in the truth.
That you're in the truth, yeah.
You're in the truth. You're aware that you're telling the truth. No matter what people say, you're solid, because, yes, you can yell at me, you can say that it's not true, but this is true.
Yeah.
this is the truth. You know, we go back to mathematics as well, in the sense that like ultimately this is, you know, 2 plus 2 is 4. Like you can say the opposite, but still tomorrow you're gonna come back in this place, you're gonna behave in the same way, you're gonna think the same result, I'm gonna be right. So either you change, you know, like this is the power of being, of like understanding. You know, I feel like there is a lot of it of this in your story as well, of like getting back to your own power by building the confidence of you being in the truth. You know, like when you will go to the doctor and be like, have this issue, and the doctor will be like, oh, just go to an anxiety meeting, right? And you're like, no, this is nonsense. You know, like you can tell when something is a lie. So I think it's very important to finally, you know, stay in our truth and be able to speak our truth to everybody, like at work. And I think this again, like, I feel like your whole story is so full of these kind of synchronicities on the same field, on the same ultimate truth, which is you have to say your truth. Because I feel like you had the same experience with the doctors that would not listen to you and will just give you very superficial advice, like general advice, without realizing that you had a very severe condition, that you were basically experiencing a complete change in hormonal amount in your blood, and like it was crazy. So how did that go? Like, were you able to say your truth with all those doctors?
Yeah, I was, and I feel so grateful for my mom because she had been through the exact same experience as me when she turned 30. And of course it was even worse for her because that was like, you know, 25 years before me, when Western medicine was even worse than it is now in terms of listening, and especially listening to women. And so she really set me up to have my power in those conversations of like, hey, you're going to tell them something's happening to you, and they're going to tell you that your experience is not true.
Wow.
And you need to stand in your experience and know that what you're feeling is true.
She told you that?
She told me that.
This is so incredible. I feel like we don't do it enough to like tell people the world is going to go against you and you're going to have to stand in your truth. This happens at every level, you know. It's not just about having a health condition that a doctor doesn't listen to you about. Being a woman in general, this is like the general experience we have, not just as in healthcare.
Yeah.
In general, you know, men constantly believe, they're convinced of knowing better, and the world they have built is just a war. So they don't realize that they're just wrong. And so staying in your power as a woman, staying in your truth, despite all these things that we get from the outside, all the pressure, as a light worker, as a woman, you know, like I feel like you had so much of like a huge share of that for all the categories you belong to, including rare diseases. It's like it's a lot, and we should tell people more. I feel like this is the real problem of the world, and that's why I wanted to create this new season, which is about healing the world, because healing the world is about putting boundaries and pushing people away when you're like, no, I know what I'm talking about. I know this is my truth. I know this is the truth, and you know less. Period. It's a strength, that it's a power that we need to acquire, and we need to tell others, because the first time you always get there and you're like, oh, maybe I'm just, you know, presumptuous. They make you feel presumptuous. They make you feel like, I know better. I have a PhD. I have an MD degree. Like, you know, lesser than me. And you believe that because, first of all, we're indoctrinated to give authority to people with degrees, and this has been intentional. But also, you're younger than a doctor most of the times. You know, you're lesser experienced than a doctor. You have literally studied less about how your body works, and so you're like, well, I guess, right? So it's very important to give your children, to give people around you and other women around you the confidence to tell them this is going to happen to you. They're gonna deny your truth. You have to stand in your truth. This is so important because it prevents all the first part, which is the part in which you cave in. You're like, okay, well, maybe, right? The part in which you tremble and you shake and your belief system shakes. You're like, no, I know already. I don't need to go through all of that, you know?
Yeah, and my mom, like, I'm so grateful that she had the confidence to do that for herself, because when she was going through the same thing I was going through when she turned 30, like the doctors put her on this medication for her perimenopause, and it made her extremely homicidal. And she went to the doctors and she said, hey, like, this is happening to me. It didn't start happening until you put me on this medication.
What medication was that?
I don't remember what it was.
Was it hormonal?
I believe so, yeah. And the doctors straight up told her, that medication doesn't do that. That's not what's causing it. That's not a side effect of that medication. I don't know why that's happening to you, but it's not because of our medicine.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like, let me tell you a story. Like, first of all, I understand what you mean for when you say homicidal, because I've taken, I think, in Italy especially, but here too, the day after pill, like a couple of times in my life when I was with my ex-boyfriend in Italy, the condom broke and I was in college and I had to take a contraceptive. I don't remember what that was, but I remember that it made me homicidal. The word you used, it just like resonated with my memory so well. It was perfect because I'm very, very like a calm kind of person. Like I've never been angry in that way, you know? And I was at work one day, the day after I had taken this thing, and I was like, I want to kill this guy. I literally, like, if I don't leave, I have this anger that I've never had before. I could kill this guy. I had to leave. I had to go home. And I experienced that multiple times after taking day after pills, but then after I knew that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay home the day after because I don't want to kill anybody. But literally, I had that. And I can tell you that I've been victim of a lot of different side effects that doctors denied and told me, no, this is not a side effect of our pill. I had an experience with metrolol tartrate, write it down. I think it's called metrolol or something like that. It's basically a medication for cardiac disease. So it's supposed to prevent heart failure and to, like, if you have palpitations and stuff, to calm you down. And so I took it once because I developed a cardiac disorder. Now I don't have anymore, but I developed it after a very stressful time of work and like my whistleblowing activity and all that kind of stuff. I developed this cardiac disorder in which I had palpitations while being in bed and about to go to sleep. So I was very relaxed, but suddenly my heart would start racing. And so the doctor told me, the cardiologist told me, if that happens, take this pill, right? And I took that pill and I started relaxing, and instead my heart stopped. So instead of preventing heart failure, it caused me heart failure. And I was alone in my house, in my apartment, and I was in bed. I was about to fall asleep, and instead I realized that my heart had stopped beating because my brain started getting cold. I started feeling the cold from my brain, my brain wasn't getting oxygen. And instead of falling asleep, I immediately opened my eyes. I started feasting myself on my heart. I restarted my heart. I go to the emergency care. And at the emergency room, the doctor tells me, oh no, this is impossible. If your heart had stopped beating, you would have lost consciousness. And in the file, it never even mentioned the fact that I had taken the pharmaceutical compound. He never even mentioned it, which means that he did not report the adverse effect to the corporation, to the pharmaceutical company, to the hospital. So that's how they do that. Like, people do report things, but every time someone reports a side effect, they're like, oh, this did not happen, it's not possible, nobody has done it before. A lot of people have done it before, but they don't report it. And that's how pharmaceutical companies can keep selling those drugs, without having to report what actually happens to you. But yeah, that's how they do that.
Yeah. And then, with my mom, like, the doctors told her to stay on that medication, and she went off of it. And as soon as she went off of it, all the homicidal feelings went away.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was like, but they still wouldn't admit that that's what caused it. And then when my gynecologist, and talking, I love that you brought up the power dynamics too, because it's like, I felt like she is a gynecologist. She knows more about women's bodies. And of course, in school, I didn't learn hardly anything about my own body. So, especially about like my reproductive organs and my vagina, and like at least when I was going to school, and it was Catholic school, like we didn't learn about any of those parts of ourselves. And so like, of course she knows better. And also like, I was in such a state of like sickness at that point, like I talked about with my mind, like not being able to focus, having all this anxiety, not being able to multitask anymore, not even feeling like I was myself, like I was a different person. And so I was like, I will do anything that anybody that has a doctor's degree tells me, because I'm trying to fix this. And so it felt like, you know, there's also a little bit of that sense that I had of like preying on my weakness in that moment, of like, you know, they knew that I was below my optimal ability to make decisions for myself. And when she gave me that birth control, I had the same, I don't remember exactly what they gave my mom, but the same thing happened to me. I got very full of rage, and I was very, like, it was homicidal. That's not an exaggeration. Like,
what was it? Do you remember what birth control was that?
I don't remember. It was one of the, like, take the pill every day ones. It wasn't a patch or anything like that. Okay. But I don't remember what the brand was.
Hormones do a lot. Like I always tell women, you should never take birth controls unless, you know, if you have a condition like her that you have to take hormones, you have to take things because you don't have hormones. That's different. But wanting to take contraceptive pills or like birth control things just for the sake of not having bleedings every month or not having cramps that can be cured in holistic ways, it's crazy, because what hormones do to your brain, having or not having hormones, what it does to your brain, to your personality, to your body, is so holistically huge in the sense that it affects your body in such a huge way that taking birth control pills just for the sake of preventing having children, you know, like just use a condom, you know, like, and obviously you know, it can happen that then you have to take the after pill, but it happens one day, you know, like then you can have a homicidal instinct one day, but the rest of the time you're yourself, you know, like that's important. And instead hormones can change your personality. And you were telling me that you removed your uterus. Did you remove your ovaries too?
Yeah, they did the full hysterectomy. Yeah.
Wow. And so how, like, are you still taking what are you taking right now? What is your prescriptions right now?
Yeah, so I was on the troches, as they call them, which is the bioidentical hormones, until about 4 months ago, actually, when I really, you know, as we talked about before, like I really follow my intuition and listen to my body. And so I was taking them one evening, because I took them in the mornings and then in the evenings, and I just felt this sense in my body of like this internal knowing of like, this is too much. Like it feels like too much. And so I was like, okay, like, and I really sat with that for a little bit, because I had tried to wean myself off of my hormones before and it didn't go very well. So I really sat with it, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to try it again and see what happens. And so about 4 months ago, I started weaning myself off the hormones. And
wow.
Yeah, and I did it slowly at first, like, you know, with anything, to just completely go off it can be kind of jarring. And about a month and a half ago, I weaned myself completely off of them. And luckily I had, you know, when I moved to LA a couple of years ago, I needed to find a new doctor to prescribe me my hormones out here, because before I had been getting them from my doctor in Kansas City, the holistic woman. And so I found this beautiful, amazing functional medicine doctor. Like, again, it was really easy. Like, she was a referral from somebody I knew, and it just fell into my lap and appeared for me. And she was so understanding. And when I told her I wanted to wean myself off of my hormones, she was like, okay, like, let's have a call about it. And I was like, you know what? I really don't feel like she was like, I want to make sure that you understand, like, all the side effects and everything. And I said, you know what? I really don't feel like I need to have a call about it. Like, I feel like this is what's right for me, and I really know that it is. And she said, okay, great. Like, that's fine.
I feel like I heard a lot of very good things about functional medicine, like it's compared to like the whole word, functional, just means that you do something if it's needed, if it's functional to your journey, if it's functional to your healing, if it's functional. And I know this sounds like everything should be, like Western medicine should be functional to our healing, right? But it's not. It's functional to capitalistic purposes. That's why it's not called functional medicine, and that's why there is a whole branch called functional medicine instead. So I think I don't know a lot about it, so don't quote me on that. But I feel like I've heard a lot of good things about functional medicine, functional nutrition, functional doctors. So maybe it's good. I will probably need to interview a functional doctor in the podcast as well, because it's sounds very interesting, and your experience corroborates that. Thank you so much for this experience. I feel like we have given a lot of information, and I would like to give you a couple of minutes to give your handles and where people can find you, and how, what kind of services you offer, and
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for having me on the podcast today and coming to my home. Feels really lovely to have you here. And I know my cats have been enjoying you.
We love each other.
Yeah. And I do, I know it's been a lot of information. I hope everybody can take it in. I feel like I could talk to you for another 3 hours.
We're going to have a second episode, you don't know.
Yeah. But where you can find me is mostly on Instagram, and I'm at Mindful Creatrix. And I do have a TikTok as well. I'm more active on that now. I'm just starting to be more active. Instagram is where you can find most of my information. And I'm actually going to be featured in a documentary that's coming out early next year called Ungrind Revolution. And it's a documentary about entrepreneurs like myself who are helping to ungrind the lifestyle of whatever client base they're working with. And I'm really excited about that. It's going to have a lot of really amazing and powerful information for lots of different people to learn how to ungrind their lifestyle. And particularly for me, it's felt really beautiful because I get to help share and spread my message about the shift that I want to make, shifting the entire entertainment industry into the space of harmonious creative collaboration. And the way that I'm working with people right now is I'm working solely with women identifying, and non-binary producers and creative leaders in the entertainment industry. I have one-on-one programs available. I have a group program that I'm just about to launch. I have also a mastermind that I'm really excited about that I'm about to start inviting people to. It's going to be a application only process. The group program is application only as well. And you can DM me on Instagram if you're interested in that. I should have the applications for both of those up here in the next couple weeks. And I'm also really wanting to get more, I've worked on set. I'm also really wanting to be more present on set. So, I have plenty of services that I offer for on-set, from anything from just the top of the day thing we talked about earlier to more extended services. So if you're interested in getting in touch with me, Instagram is the best way. And then my email is sarah@sarahthorman.com. So
I love this.
yeah.
I really am very, very glad she's doing what she's doing, and you guys should be too, because you also watch movies, and so I'm sure that she's gonna have a huge impact. And I can't wait for your school, for your the school for people to do what you're doing in your field. I can't wait for that to start and to spread. I think it's very much needed. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we may even meet her another time. You never know. Because it was very interesting. There was so much to talk about. And so thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for the cats. Thank you for this place. Thank you guys for listening. And I hope you have a great day. And thank you.
Thank you.